There we go. Welcome everyone to the next and final of our Bonitas 2020 Comrades Marathon online seminars. My name is Brad Brown. It's good to have you with us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you can all see and hear us. And let us know in the comments if you can. We'd love to sort of find out where you're joining us from. I'm just keeping an eye on the screen next to me to make sure that everything is working fine. We've got the coach, Lindsay Parry, with us today as well. Lindsay, nice to touch base once again.
How's it, Brad? Sorry, I've just started this thing in Facebook, so let me turn that off so everyone doesn't hear us twice. Yeah, very actually in a pretty good mood today. Since things have changed quite dramatically in our lockdown status, and we can now exercise pretty much any time of day. So yeah, looking forward to helping people along. 2 weeks to go to a bit of an event, so to create a little bit of running excitement in our lives, and then also just to talk about where to from there and laying the platform for 2021.
Absolutely. All right. I see Christine Audrey Wilmans saying, hi guys. Hi Christine. Nice to have you on. Please let us know in the comments. Nell joining us as well from San Jose in California. Nell, nice to see you as well. I see Sean has joined us. We've got Adewale as well. It looks like everything is working the way it should, which is fantastic. And yeah, let us know if you are running in the race of... Lindsay, what's the official title? I keep messing it up. Is it the Race of Legends? What's the official?
It's the Race the Comrades Legends. It's the virtual Race the Comrades Legends race. They actually shortened it because it was a mouthful. So I'm actually going to try and find that shortening quickly for you.
Wow. I've had one of those days where it's probably, I've spoken to the most people today I have in the last 8 weeks. And because it's at 8 o'clock at night, I'm literally out of words. So if anything, this webinar could become quite interesting. So as always, please do keep the questions coming. We've got Don and Peggy Miller who are in Oregon in the USA. Hi Don and Peggy, nice to have you guys on as well. Owen Martin saying hi Coach and Brad, nice to have you on. Tinus joining from Bloemfontein. Tinus, I hope it's not too cold in Bloem. I've seen some of the temperatures in the Free State this last week. I don't know how Lindsay and I used to live there, man. That place is freezing cold. I would never survive. Yeah. Absolutely wouldn't survive.
I moved there when I was 12 years old, and when my first day of school was in the middle of July, and my mom sent me to school with one jersey. And on the drive home from school, I said to my mom, we will be going to the shops now, and we will be buying another jersey.
That's the sort of where the stories come from, that you had to walk 20 miles barefoot in the snow one way to school. That's where all those stories came from. So enough of us yakking. Please do keep questions coming in the comments. We love to hear from you. We've got a few things that we want to run through tonight. I'm going to share my screen with everyone. If that's good, I'm just going to get that the way it should be, and then just close it up slightly. If you give me a second, I'll get my slide deck up on screen, and we should be good to go. So let me make sure that you guys can see the screen that I want to be sharing with you. That looks like it. And a massive thank you, as always, to Bonitas for making these webinars possible. We've been doing them for the last 6 months. We've been doing them for the last, I think, probably 7 or 8 years. And it would only be possible if it wasn't for Bonitas. So a massive thank you to Bonitas for making these possible. Just coming up on this webinar tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about proceeding with caution at this time. Obviously, we're coming out of various phases of lockdown, particularly here in South Africa. Around the world, it's been slightly different, but South Africans have really been struggling with the running, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about what to focus on in the next 4 weeks, and obviously, the big event is coming up on the 14th of June, but we want to talk beyond that as well, because life doesn't end on the 14th of June. We want to start making sure that we're laying the foundation for 2021 as well, and we start right now in the next 4 weeks on what we can do and some of the benefits we can get. We're going to talk about battling with motivation, because I think a lot of us are battling with motivation with no races on the calendar. We're not quite sure if the November sort of series of marathons are going to be happening. That's still up in the air. I mean, Boston Marathon cancelling last week is probably an indication that we might see more cancellations, but we're going to talk about how we can get around this no race motivation. And then we're going to be talking about some training resources and how we can help you here at Coach Parry in the weeks and months to come. And stick around, because we've got an unbelievable opportunity for you to work with us over the next few months. So, Lindsay, let's jump straight into who's who and that sort of thing. And the questions, as I said, as always, please do keep the questions coming on the Facebook. Pop them into the comments, and I'll keep an eye on those as we go. Who are we? That's the big question. Lindsay is known as the Comrades Marathon coach. He is the official Comrades Marathon coach. He's been around, or the official coach for Comrades, for the last 13 years that he's been involved. For the past 15 years, he's been coaching amateur and professional athletes, both here in South Africa and around the world, to PRs and podiums on some of the world's most prestigious races. He currently is training the South African 10,000 meter champion, Thalani Buthelezi. He's got 2 Comrades winners in his, has coached 2 Comrades winners, Caroline Wasserman and Shanae Bosman, back-to-back in 95, 96. Also, Richard Murray, the triathlete, Olympic triathlete. Lindsay coached him to his first Olympics, as well as his first WTS race victory. And he's also led teams, South African teams, to both the Rio and London Olympic Games, as well as the Edinburgh and Gold Coast Commonwealth Games, and should have been going to Tokyo for his 3rd Olympics, but obviously that's been postponed as well due to COVID. And he's not a bad runner himself, a 2:45 marathon, which is not half shabby. For those of you wondering who I am, the guy who talks a lot, I'm the guy who lost half a Backstreet Boy en route to running his first Comrades. I decided, literally, it was 10 years ago, that I wanted to run my first one. I clocked in at a whopping 165 kgs, and yeah, managed to make it to the start line in 2010. I missed the cutoff that year, and then went back in 2011 and finished 3 Comrades in the last 10 years. I've also done 5 Ironmans, and I don't have a marathon PR of 2:45. It's more along the 4:19, somewhere around there. But Lindsay, let's actually, we're not going to jump straight into it. I wanted to share a quick story, and if you're on our first webinar, you might have seen this already, and I wanted to share the story just because motivation is lacking for a lot of us at the moment, and I wanted to share a story that really fires me up, and I'm hoping it fires you up too. So the lady on screen there goes by the name of Carol Jarvis. She lives in KZN, and she's got a phenomenal story. She was asthmatic growing up. She really struggled with lung issues, and then in 1993, her 5-year-old son, he was 5 at the time, Philip, picked up a virus that left him brain damaged. She took up running in 2004 with a goal to run 8Ks. That's all she wanted to do, was run 8Ks, and I think living in KZN, there must be something in the water, because anybody who starts running in KZN, you catch the Comrades bug, and she went on to run 6 Comrades. She wakes up at 3:30 every single morning to train, so that she's back by 6 a.m. in the morning to take care of Philip. In 2010, just after Comrades, she was hijacked with her kids in the car. Things just really started to go south for Carol. She tried to qualify in 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2015, and just kept missing the cutoff for the qualifiers, and she was desperate to go back to Comrades. In 2015, she broke her wrist, tore her TFL in her hip, and she pretty much thought that was it. She thought she was too old, too slow, and she wasn't going to go back, but she wanted to run another Comrade. So she went to one of the Comrades road shows, like we're doing these, but in person in KZN, and that was where she made a decision that changed everything. And I'm going to tell you more about that a little bit later on, okay? So stick around for the conclusion of that story. Lindsay, let's talk about where we are now. We often in these webinars talk about what should we be focusing on now. Obviously, things have been blown out of the water because of COVID, but ideally, where should we be sitting from a training perspective at the moment?
Yeah, so look, we've been allowed in a South African context. I know we've got a lot of internationals on the call too, but you know, we've all had something in common is that none of us have really had races to train for. All the races have been cancelled. In South Africa, though, at least it's been about 4 weeks since we chatted last time when we were allowed out of our hard lockdown where nobody was allowed to exercise outside. And now we're moving into a time where we can exercise much more freely. We've essentially got unlimited time. Yep, it has to be between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. One of the first people that I worked for in the industry, guy by the name of Kevin Musicanth, and there's absolutely no chance he's going to be watching this because he is a rugby coach and a fine specimen in the gym, but certainly not built for 90 kilometers. Anyway, I digress. when I worked for him, our principle was the 6 to 6 principle. We work hard from 6 to 6 every day in the personal training industry. Anyway, that's where we are now. It's 6 to 6, and that's when we allow to exercise. We do have tons more time. We had 3 hours before. So again, in the South African context, we've had this 4-week build-up, and now we've got a lot more freedom, but we do have a virtual race coming up. The Comrades Legends there, Brad. I got it right first time. Virtual race that a lot of people are preparing for. And there are 2 weeks to that. So, the irony is that this webinar normally is really all about the Comrades route, visualizing it. What are we going to do for the taper? And about building confidence and nutrition. And we're going to touch on some of those things anyway, because they are good skills to have in your toolbox, learning about tapering, so on and so forth. And we are going to chat about the different races. So whether you're doing the 5, the 10, the 21, the 45, or the 90K, and is it wise to do 90Ks now on the 14th of June, given that a lot of people would have missed their entire April training, and in May on these webinars, we were encouraging people to train for 5 and 10K races. So it may not be in your best interest to race 90 kilometers. But yeah, that's essentially, we are in South Africa in the middle of winter, in the rest of the world going into summer. I've seen in the UK, it's peachy. You could trick people to coming and living in England at the moment with the weather that you are having. And 2 weeks from our virtual Comrades Race the Legends race. So yeah, and where our focus should lie will depend a little bit on which event we're going to go into. So that is essentially what we are going to cover in the next slide.
Cool stuff. Lindsay, just some housekeeping. I see that one or two people are saying my mic volume has been really soft. So I've switched microphones while you were chatting there. I'm hoping that's better. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me a bit better.
Because now you're shouting at me. I had to turn mine down. So.
All right, I'm just checking the comments to make sure that people can hear me, which is cool. All right, let me know. And while we're talking of comments, if I could ask everyone, if you wouldn't mind, please sharing this thread on Facebook into any sort of Facebook groups that you may be in, or if you have a Facebook page for your running club or running group, or WhatsApp group. There we go. People saying much better. Fantastic. Apologies about that. I'm not sure why my mic wasn't working. It was fine when we sound tested, but I've unplugged it. So that's cool. So yeah, please share this into various Facebook groups. The other thing I wanted to know is in the comments, let us know which one of the virtual runs you're doing. So I think that would be a good indication, Lindsay, as far as where people's minds are at with regards to which distance they are running. So please let us know in the comments which one you are doing, and keep those questions coming. Lindsay, let's talk about the next 2 weeks. What should we focus on the next 2 weeks?
So look, if we're doing one of the shorter races, the 5, the 10, the 20, and the 21, we really want to be focusing on sharpening our tools. It's only really necessary to take a couple of days, maybe 3 to maximum 5 days, where we really cut down the volume and freshen up the legs. Strength training, you can do strength training right up to the Wednesday if you're doing the 5, the 10, and the 21. But for the next 2, so this week and next week, you would hit some fairly short, hard, really fast intervals to fire those legs and the nerves up, so that we really get that neuromuscular coordination firing, and you can get used to that feeling of the burn and pushing yourself over a short distance. It's too late now in these last 2 weeks to really push yourself on, say, a 5K, but if we'd spoken maybe a week earlier, I would have said this past weekend would have been a good time to really push yourself hard on a 3 to 5K, so that you can familiarize yourself with actually how hard it is to push yourself to that level, because that's not something as South Africans we are used to. And mentally, it's actually tougher than you think, even though it's really short. If you're going the 45K or 90K route, then you do need to look at cutting back pretty much from now. This weekend coming, you don't really want to do more than an hour to an hour and a half, because next week, Sunday, you want fresh legs. Whether you're running 45 or 90 Ks easy or trying to test yourself, you want fresh legs. Otherwise, you're really not going to enjoy your day out, because your legs are going to be tight from the start to the finish. Okay. The coach's bias. So one thing that, as much as I love Comrades, and I mean, I must say that this is a Comrades webinar. I've been part of this race since I was a tiny little kid. You know, my dad was winning gold medals just before I was born. And pretty much from the time I was born, I was on the side of the road with my mom, seconding him Comrades while he's still doing fantastically well over the years. I've run the race 6 or 7 times. I've been a Comrades coach since 2016, so I love Comrades. Don't get me wrong. I love everything about the day. But right now, where we are with no races around in the near future, I feel like South Africans have got such a unique opportunity, you know, and I stressed that on the last webinar, that there's such a unique opportunity here to do really well, and work on our 5 and our 10K speed. And I just want to give you a few examples of why I feel like that is so important. So I've just got my calculator out here in front of me, and I'm going to run through a few things, so just bear with me for a second. But let's work on 5K time, okay? If you are somebody who's running 5Ks in 30 minutes at the moment, right? 30 minutes means that you're somebody who's on the verge of qualifying for Comrades. You're on the 450 marathon mark, and that then means that you're probably going to just about sneak home at Comrades on 12 hours. So if you use this time right now to really work on your 5K time, and you can get it down to 20, let's just go 29 minutes. Let's be really conservative there in 1 minute. That takes you down to a 4:42 marathon, call it a 4:40 marathon, which in turn suddenly means you're looking at an 11:45 finish at Comrades. So you've got all this buffer, 15 minutes buffer, which you probably could have never dreamed of having before. We take down another minute and we get you down to 28 minutes for 5Ks. The knock-on effect that has is that you're suddenly capable of running 4.5, under 4:35. So let's be conservative and call it a 4:35 marathon. And that then takes you to a under 11.5 hours for finishing Comrades. And I'll do one more and say we get you all the way down to 27 minutes for 5K. And I promise you, 3 minutes sounds like a hell of a lot, but when you've never worked on 5K speed, you really can do this. Get down to 27 minutes, which then puts you onto a sub 4:25, and means that suddenly your potential at Comrades is down to a bronze, an 11-hour, or a 1 hour buffer on race day. So my personal bias right now is that in the absence of Comrades itself happening, I would encourage people to run 5:10, and perhaps 45Ks is still reasonable. If you run 45Ks and do it pretty easy, you'll be back training, and you can train hard for 5 and 10K races all the way through to October, November. November, we should start getting some races on the calendar. My worry with a 90K is that there are very few people that have actually done the training that you should do to comfortably be able to do a 90. I'm pretty sure that most people would be capable of doing it, even with limited training. And then also, if you are a borderline sub 12-hour finisher, you've got 12 hours. You've got from 6 until 6 to do it. And so it's going to be a long day under a lot of pressure. You're not going to have the camaraderie on the side of the road. You're not going to have the supporters that are driving you through. You're not going to have the hype that you get on race day. So it really is going to become so super tough. So what I would love for people to do is to go out there and choose probably a 10 or 21, most people will choose. And if you nail that 10 and 21, one of the things that feedbacks you'll get is that what your potential is on Comrades Race Day for a Comrades finish in 2021. And what we want to do then is work over the next 3 months to improve that 10K, maybe 21K time, so that your finishing time at Comrades comes down and down and down. And you'll be much hungrier for next year. You'll be mentally fresh for next year. So that is the coach's bias. Even though he's the Comrades coach, his bias is away from doing the full 90Ks. Obviously, if there are people doing it, I will be cheerleading you. We'll be cheerleading you from my 10K. That's what I'm running. I'm going to run 10Ks as fast as I can. I'm currently trying to get my 10K as close to my PB as I can at my ripe old age of, I think I'm 43 now. Okay. So how does a taper work?
Lindsay, but before you jump into the taper, we've got some questions that are tied to that. We'll get into the taper in a second, I think. Let me just jump through to, I'm going to go back a slide so we can answer a few questions. And there have been a few. Is it Moketsi is saying that he's struggling with an injury now, and he's thinking that his virtual Legends race is under threat. Is it worth doing more damage, running as much as we'll want to be part of this thing? Is it worthwhile risking doing more damage that's going to set you back? And as you say, you aren't then able to improve those times over shorter distances.
Yeah, look, again, I personally wouldn't. Look, 2 weeks, depending on what the injury is, 2 weeks is certainly enough time to get that treated and sorted out so that you can participate in the day. But it essentially rules out doing the 90, because then you will really flare that injury up, and then you're going to be battling with injury for months to come. And will you be ready even in time to start training for 2021 when you can actually earn a Comrades Finishers Medal at the finish? So I would definitely be on the side of caution here. There is enough time now to rest, get treatment, heal up, and do one of the lesser distances, and to do them as a training run. But the 45 to 90, that's not a great idea.
Cool. And then just a comment from Tinnis, which I think is awesome. Tinnis saying he's doing the 21. He doesn't want to put his body under too much stress due to the uncertainty for the remainder of the year. I think that is about as sensible advice as you're going to get, Tinnis. I think you are spot on there. And then, Lindsay, 2 questions. And I can't remember who asked the first one, and I'm looking for the second one. But let me ask the first one. Someone was asking, are we allowed to go and run the 90Ks on the Comrades route?
Look, you with the rules as they are, you probably are, if you want to analyze it from a legal perspective. But I would say that it's probably not a fabulous idea, because you probably won't be alone, and it will quickly look like it's turned into an organized run, which then could land you in proper trouble with the law. So yeah, strictly speaking, yes. I mean, there are obviously parts of that route that are off limits to runners. You can't go running down I think it's the M13 through Westville. I mean, that's a highway, and you're not allowed to run on it. But same I think from getting from Hillcrest to Pinetown, you also I think that's also classified as a national road. So there are some sections that no, it's against the law, full stop. But for the most part, yeah, it's probably, strictly speaking, it's probably okay with the new regulations. But if you find yourself there with 1,000 other runners, then you are going to run into problems with the law. They will notice, and we've seen that the law has been a little heavy-handed during lockdown, so I wouldn't advise it.
Muketsi asked another great question, and this was the second question, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, and I'm not quite sure if anybody knows the answer to this, Lindsay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do we still need to run within the 5K radius of home?
So I have only seen the full draft document, and in the draft document, you still had to stay within your 5K radius. But I have seen some commentary over the last well, over today, to be fair, that it looks like that clause has been removed, and that you can go and run where you like, essentially, and ride your bike where you like, but it must be between 6 and 6. So I can't actually. You certainly, unfortunately, you won't be able to quote me if you're caught outside the 5K radius. It is, look, there's 2 weeks to go, so I'm pretty sure that that's the sort of clarification we can seek, and through Comrades we can push that out in the sort of final rules of the virtual race. We can make sure that we've got that stuff in there.
That's cool. Warren Porteous was saying he's running his in his green number. He's running the 21 in his green number. I think that's wise. Warren, green's made you wise, which is awesome.
I know Warren well, and he's extremely wise, and he's particularly wise not to try and run 90 kilometers on the 14th.
Exactly. Brandmark was asking, how do you maintain? He's been lucky enough through lockdown to be training on a treadmill. How do you maintain concentration and motivation when running on a treadmill?
So look, this is such a strange thing, because I also have a treadmill now. And during the level 5 lockdown, I loved running on my treadmill, and I've never ever enjoyed running on a treadmill. But there was something about the fact that without the treadmill, I wouldn't be allowed to run at all. That running on the treadmill was really great. Since lockdown restrictions have eased and we've been able to run outside, I have been back to really not loving the treadmill. But there are a couple of things that I've figured out that make it far more manageable. In most of my coaching, I deal in time, but I find on a treadmill, time goes like ridiculously slowly. So when I'm training on a treadmill, I work in kilometers. It shouldn't make any difference, but the kilometers tick by much faster than the time does. So kilometers feel for my head, the kilometers feel much easier. So one of the tricks is to find, when you're on the treadmill, what is the thing that makes you feel like things are moving along. Music. If you can have some music playing in the background. I ran with earphones and I didn't find that it was okay. But what I really find is having some decent sound in the room that you're training in. That was like really great and helps you to actually drift off a little bit in thought. Use lots of variation. So when we run outside, we run uphill, we run downhill, we run some straights. So build some variation in, either through a random program, so that the treadmill is changing from flat to 2% to 3% to flats on. Or what I often do is every half a K to a K, I change something. So if it's changing the speed by 0.3 or changing the gradient by 2% or 1% or 1.5%. So make those kind of changes as you go along. And then Zwift is, if most people have got a laptop now, and you can buy a foot pod that either, if it's got Bluetooth capabilities, through your watch unit, or you can actually buy a Zwift foot pod for about $900, and then that taps you into a virtual online running space where there are other people. There's different routes that you can run, but you get like a virtual screen. It's giving you quite a lot of feedback and some fun routes that you can run, and it'll tell you when to increase the gradient and so on. And I found that to be fairly stimulating to use.
Cool. A couple more questions before we get onto the taper. Rion and Andre asking, do we have to run in masks?
So the answer to that is absolutely. So yeah, you're outside, and the rules are unambiguous with running. You need to run with a mask. It is, well, a mask or a homemade piece of cloth or something covering your mouth. So the easiest thing to use is a buff. It's much more breathable than an actual mask. It doesn't quite feel like you're suffocating. And then look, I must also admit that if I can see nobody, then I do pull it down and allow myself a few delicious gulps of non-filtered air. But if there's any runners coming, I make sure that with at least 50 to 100 meters, I I pull that buff up to cover my nose. And you know what, I still need to run early so that I can work and do homeschooling and that sort of thing. So I do find right now that the buff is actually quite pleasant because it's pretty cold out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then sticking on the masks, Archie Malinga wants to know, what are the dangers of running with a mask? Lindsay, there's been a few posts that have been doing the rounds on social media that your lungs are going to collapse. And what's the deal? Is it dangerous running with a mask?
Look, if you ignore the warning signs, so I would say that if you're going to do very high intensity training or race like an absolute lung busting 5 or 10 kilometer, you certainly can go into some cardiorespiratory distress. But as soon as you get to that point, if you slow down, then those symptoms will pass. And again, if there is nobody around when you do start to really feel like, my goodness, I'm desperate for air, if you do take a few gulps of air for 30 to 40 seconds, that will pass. But no, I mean, the stories around your lungs collapsing and that sort of thing, I could imagine a scenario where there's enough carbon dioxide that maybe you can get a bit lightheaded, but that's about it. Just don't ignore those signs. Get some air or slow down.
Lindsay, I'm loving the questions. I mean, we've done these webinars for a long, long time, and I think you and I both, when it's like a normal Comrades year, can predict the sorts of questions we'll get at certain times of the year. And I'm loving tonight because it's so different. We're getting such cool questions. We've got one from Dawood. Dawood wants to know, if he's running the 90 and his watch dies at 80, does it still count?
Though, if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen.
There we go. That's exactly what Skalk Versaki said to him. So
I'll tell you what, you take a second watch with you so that if your first watch dies, you can start your second watch. It'll look, my good friend Kirsten will tell you that once you stop, so if we stopped ever to go into a petrol station to get anything, he would always remind us afterwards that we have to restart our watches because this is a new run. But I don't think the rest of us will be that harsh. So have a backup watch so that you can measure the next 10 Ks and claim your 90.
Another great question about buffs and masks, Lindsay. Does running with a buff or a mask improve your cardiovascular capacity?
So it will improve your intercostal muscles, or the muscles that you use to help you breathe. So from that point of view, it can improve the tidal volume, in other words, the amount of air that you can move in and out of your lungs. But what it cannot do is stimulate high altitude conditions, as I have seen bandied about. It can't do that because your hemoglobin in your blood responds to the partial pressure of gas, and that will only change with changing altitude. Okay, it's not a pure function of oxygen. It's a function of the pressure of the air, and the pressure of the air does not change because you put a piece of cloth over your face. So it does not stimulate altitude training at all, but it does increase the respiratory drive because there is more carbon dioxide in there. It is harder to get enough air with each breath because you're pulling it through a material piece, so less air is coming through. So you breathe harder and deeper, and therefore it does improve the strength of the muscles between your ribs, which therefore then helps you to breathe in and expel air better, but doesn't do anything at the site of gaseous exchange.
A great question from Deborah Bourne, and I'm taking it Deborah's not in South Africa. Deborah was asking about the start and finish time in various time zones with the virtual run. Lindsay, is there a set time that everyone should be starting at? And then obviously for the 90Ks, because of the lockdown regulations, 6 to 6, so it's 12 hours. Do you know if there is a set time that everyone should be starting at? What's the procedure?
No, there won't be. Obviously in South Africa, it's 6 to 6. you could, if you don't have lockdown restrictions in your country and you do want to be running the race at the same time as everybody else and posting pictures, and by the way, that's one of the real reasons for this virtual, is also for people to share this experience. So take selfies of yourself, put them onto social media. The idea is for all of us to connect, to interact, to be as one on that day. So while it'll be nice that it's all happening at the same time, because it is a 12-hour event, there will be some overlap regardless of what time zone you're in, and well, maybe unless you're in New Zealand, then you're going to be way out. But yeah, for the most part, there's going to be some reasonable overlap, and as long as you get it done on the 14th of June in your particular time zone, that'll all be good.
Yolandi Vanderberg wants to, Knutzer wants to know, if you've entered for the 21, can you downgrade to the 10? I'm guessing she'd have to contact Comrades to see if that is possible, Lindsay.
Yeah, look, I'm sure that you can, but I don't know for 100% sure. But yeah, you want to contact the guys at Championship. They're the ones that are organizing and controlling that entry process.
Well, there we go. Grant just commented to Yolandi saying, yes, you are able to. You just need to log into your profile on the Comrades website. So, Yolandi, I would suggest I'd take Grant's advice. Go and log in. See if you can downgrade. If you can't, get in touch with the guys at Comrades. I'm sure they'll be able to help you out. Lindsay, Lane Duplessis wants to know, have you got any advice for those who are running the 90Ks? I know you've said
yes,
that you're not a fan, but what can they do? What advice would you give?
Yes, so I absolutely do. And as I said, in terms of the taper now, that will be quite important. We've got 2 weeks. Even if you haven't trained properly, you do want to start fresh, okay? So I would effectively start that process from the weekend. I mean, you don't have to do a very long, drawn-out taper like we normally would do for Comrades, but you definitely don't want to be doing much more than 15Ks max this coming weekend, regardless of how good your training has or hasn't been. And then next week, you will do a couple of runs between 30 and 40 minutes. Give yourself a day or two off to really freshen your legs up on race day. And then for all those that are not on the real edge of 12 hours. So if you're a 9-hour or a 10-hour, 10 and a half or 11-hour potential on the day for 90Ks, I really would just go out there with not much race plan, take it really, really easy, try by all means to enjoy yourselves, and you will, if you take that attitude, you'll enjoy yourself till at least 50Ks, probably to 70Ks. Then you start losing your sense of humor a little bit, and make sure that you've got a good nutrition plan. So if you are going to do a 90K loop and you're not going to be doing some sort of circuit where you can keep coming back to a central point where you can set up a really cool nutrition station, then make sure you organize somebody who can keep you hydrated, keep you with energy all day long, some solids, and keep you some company, and maybe play you some tunes out of the back of the car when you get into those last 10 to 15Ks, when it really is going to be starting to get a bit cold, especially up here on the high felt. Lots of walking. So, like, please don't feel like this. It doesn't count if you can't run the whole way. I highly recommend that you get into the spirit of what this is all about, and it's out there, being out in the open, being allowed to exercise, and really don't put too much performance pressure on yourself for the 90Ks.
All right. Lindsay, it looks like all your running mates are on the webinar tonight. I saw Kirsten Lehman's popped a comment in there earlier on, and Campbell Nell just said he's looking forward to his first Comrades where he doesn't cramp. So it should be a good day out.
That means he's definitely not planning on running the full 90Ks.
All right. Alan Skeen wants to know, is this going to set a precedent for virtual qualifiers for Comrades going forward?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know. I haven't discussed that at all with Comrades, to be fair. And I think as long as racing does get underway at some point in 2020, probably not. But if we are sitting in a position where races are not being run early into 2021, then I suppose it is something that we would need to discuss and consider. But for now, no, I don't know is actually the best answer I can give.
Lindsay, Dan's asking, and it's a great question too. And I think that the follow-on question to that it needs to be asked as well. Dan wants to know, when are the 2021 Comrades training plans going to be available? And let's ask, when should you start looking at training for Comrades seriously for 2021?
So at the moment, although the official date is in place for both 2021 and 2022, obviously the entry process and all of that stuff is on hold until the South African government and Athletics South Africa confirm those dates. So we will still work our training plans around those dates, and I will look to build those training plans. I'll adjust them if they need to be adjusted, but those training plans will be built essentially around people qualifying Comrades between November and February. So November 2020 and February 2021. And from now until then, what they're going to be focusing on is getting fast over 5 and 10 and maybe 21 Ks up until roughly late August, early October, when we start like really shifting that training up into qualifying criteria. So the programs will be available because there are going to be people that are going to run 90 kilometers. What I will do is make those training plans available from the last week of June, so that people can really train hard through July and August to improve their 5 and 10K times.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of people asking about, Glynis was asking, and Elliot's asking, do we know the official dates for 2020? And Elliot's asking for 2021. Just so you know, generally, Comrades is always the second Sunday in June. That's the date that it is. So you can look on the calendar and work it out. Lindsay, you mentioned the 2021 date. Do you know it offhand, or do we need to have a squiz on the calendar?
I think it was the 13th, but that's actually very quick for me to look up. So just give me a second and I will get that for you. Come on. Right, so here we go, and it will be here we go. Got it. Okay, so 13th of June and 12th of June for 2022. So those obviously cannot be officially endorsed, but that is the scheduled date for the Comrades in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, as things stand in the world right now, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen next week, never mind next year. So, that's, in theory, that's when it's going to happen, but we're not 100% sure. Lindsay, great question, and we're going to get into sort of planning and that sort of thing in a second. Don wants to know, can he run the 45 and the 90 concurrently? Meaning that he wants to do the 90, but if he doesn't finish the 90, can he fall back from a results perspective on the 45?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a question that needs to be directed to Comrades. But again, I am in contact with them, and there will obviously be a rule clarification email that will come out towards the end of next week. So I will pop that email off and just ask them to clarify that when those rules do in fact come out.
Cool. All right. Lots of great questions coming through. Keep them coming. We'll get to some more of them in a second. Lindsay, let's talk about moving forward and the uncertainty of this whole thing. And let's talk beyond the 14th of June, because, I mean, we've been talking about getting faster over 5, 10, 21 potentially. But how do we deal with what's going on in the world right now, particularly where there's no races on the calendar and there's nothing really to train for? What's the deal?
So look, I've already given like why I love.
Sorry, that's me and my fat fingers. Just so you know, we're training for 20,000 and 120. Yes, it's been a long day.
Is that 220 million? So yeah, I mean, as I've said, you know, my main motivations for why I really want people to work on their 5, 10, and 21. And you know, Brad and I have been quite busy getting imaginative, and it's brought us into contact with a lot of American runners over the last couple of weeks. And I've been doing a couple of running assessments on their running abilities and where their strengths and weaknesses lie in terms of you know, are they better short distance runners, long distance runners, what's their training been like, so that I can advise them what program they should filter into, and how to adjust training paces and so on. And one of the things that struck me is that the curve, whenever I interact with people on a one-on-one, I always build them a curve which takes their best performances over 5, 10, 21 marathon. And it builds a curve where I figure out whether they are better at the short distances and the long distances. And then we try and tease out from their training if that's a function of training, or if that is indeed where the runner's strength and weaknesses lies. And what I can tell you is that the Americans' curves are much more in line with what we'd expect. In other words, their 5K times are really good predictors of their marathon times to a couple of minutes. And it's because there's far more opportunity and far more emphasis on running fast and racing the shorter distances before people move on to the marathon. Whereas in Comrades, you see, in South Africa, people get sucked straight into the Comrades, which means that all we're really interested in is the marathon and Comrade side of things, and we ignore the 5 and the 10K part. And I think ultimately that stunts our ability to do well at the longer stuff. So that's why in my planning for 2021, it's really important that we do focus on this 5 and 10. So that's the sort of theoretical running reason. But the other reason is because it's so easy to measure 5 and 10Ks. And you know what? Those people on Twitter that get in your face because it's not officially measured and it's not an official race, who are they? Mostly we run for ourselves and for our own achievements. And 5 and 10 is super easy to measure. It's also super easy. Maybe easy is not the right word, but it's really easy to go out and bang 10Ks as hard as you can on your own. Might not feel like the effort is easy, but it's the concept is easy. And so that is why for me, it's so great. And it'll keep you mentally fresh, because if we really race hard for 5 or 10Ks, you're fully mentally engaged, but you're mentally engaged for a much shorter period of time. So you don't build up that same like mental fatigue that you do after really pushing yourself hard in a marathon or really pushing yourself hard in an ultra. So it means you can do it a few times between now and when we do get back to having races on the calendar. So moving forward for me, that's really what the next period should be about. And quite honestly, it's gotten me so excited that in future iterations of the Comrades program, one of the ways that I really want to bring the freshness back into running after Comrades is for us to focus on the shorter distances all the way through winter and spring, and then only to work towards marathons much later in the year and perhaps early in the following year. And yeah, what does it mean for your running? I think I got too excited those few slides ago. Is that what it means for your running is that it will bring back the excitement, because running fast is exciting, and it doesn't matter where you fall on the running spectrum. The kind of exhilaration of really pushing your body to its speed limit, it really is quite exciting. So what it means for your running, It's going to bring in a new impetus, some new excitement, and it's going to make you a much better runner. We're going to make you faster runners by building on our little building blocks from 5 to 10 to 21 to marathon to Comrades.
Cool. Lindsay, great question from Fahima. Fahima, nice to see you on the webinar as well. And I mean, this is obviously very hypothetical. We don't know the answer to this question, but I think it's an important one to ask. Fahima wants to know, will the rules change around races in the absence of a vaccine for COVID, from the amount of entries to the way the water stations work? Do you foresee the whole concept of races as we know it changing in the future?
The answer is yes and no, because I think it would be naive to think there are going to be no changes in the short term if we don't get very effective treatments at the very least. But I think in the medium to long term, we will largely return back to the world as we do know it. I mean, it might take a little while if this is the way we have to go. It might take a while for us to develop decent herd immunity. Each virus obviously acts on its own, but what we know historically of viruses is that they tend to become less lethal as they mutate, because if they are too efficient at killing their host, they effectively also can't go on. And so I do think while the short-term prognosis is pretty bleak, and if you look around us, the whole world, everybody's been affected. So yes, it would be naive to think that when races return, there aren't going to be, and you just have to see how, what it's like for our kids to be going back to school. Brad's son returned to school today, and it really wasn't a positive experience, to be honest. I think it's going to be difficult for everybody. So yes, I think there will be some changes in the short term, but hopefully in the medium to long term, we will get back to doing what we always did in a way that we always loved.
Cool. Yeah, there's a great comment here, Lindsay, and you said this just before the lockdown started, and Lene Duplessis reminded us of it. She said, just before we went into level 5, you said, I don't run for the races, I run because I love to run. And that has stuck with her, and she said it's changed the way she's running. So that's amazing, Lene. Thank you for sharing that story. And then this is a great question, Lindsay, and I think it's sort of in the back of people's minds, from Ilse. Ilse saying, won't you get more injuries if you concentrate on shorter, faster distances?
No, in fact, quite the opposite, because we're not constantly feeling the pressure to do more and more and more all the time. So we can run fast over shorter distances on a far more moderate volume training. And of course, and this is really so important. So this question is actually fantastic, because we haven't been clear enough on this. When you're working on speed, you don't go and measure out 400 meters and run that 400 meters as fast as you can. Of course, if you're running like that, you are going to be risking injury. But we run at a speed relative to our current ability. And over time, we try to get that faster and faster and faster. One of the reasons why I've always loved 5Ks and 8Ks as time trials to test how our training is going is because there is some inherent built-in mechanism to stop you from completely destroying yourself by running so fast in the first kilometer that you can't continue. And in that sort of built-in mechanism is also a mechanism that more often than not will prevent you from running so hard in a 5 and a 10K that you risk injury. But obviously, when we start hitting 400s and 1K repeats, you can override that. So you do need to be sensible about exactly what speed you're going out at. And I know in my Comrades talks, I always talk about high intensity training being one of the high risks for injury. And it is because of that people generally do it too fast, when they're starting out, and when we're training for Comrades, we've got this very high volume. So we've got this very high volume, and we're chucking in this very high intensity, and that's when your injury risk starts to go out of control. But now during this period, we're going to keep moderate to low overall volumes with one high intensity session per week that's at the right intensity. And over a period of 12 to 16 weeks, you're going to get faster at 5 and 10 kilometers.
Yeah, Dan was asking a very similar question, and I'm sure you aren't like, I think, Dan, you would have got the answer there. He's saying, would focusing on these shorter distances, like a 5, a 10, or a 21, be less damaging on the body compared to marathons and ultras in between Comrades? And the short answer is absolutely. Because even though the races are shorter, you're not doing as much mileage as you just explained.
Yeah, and very importantly, when we train for Comrades, the damage is actually not really done in the training for Comrades, and the same can be said for marathon. The damage isn't really done training for marathon. Yes, it's hard. Yes, we do get tired. Yes, we probably err on the side of doing too much training, but the real damage, both mental and physical, is done on race day. It's done in the last 10 kilometers of the marathon, where you're really pushing yourself hard on really, really stuffed legs. And at Comrades, it's done in the last 30 Ks, where you're pushing through the last 30 Ks on really, really stuffed legs. And that's where the damage, and why you need so much time to recover. If you run a really hard 5K today, 48 hours, you won't even know that you ran a hard 5K. 10 Ks, maybe 3 days until you get absolutely no effect. So yeah, definitely way less damage to the chassis training for these short things.
I love this. This is a comment from Sean saying, Coach, I've been using this principle for the last 2 years, and it's great. Got me to a sub-12 Comrades finish in 2019. This year looks like a sub-10, thanks to the focus on shorter distances. And there's a prime example of someone who's doing it and it works. So that is awesome. All right, we've had a couple of questions with regards to training resources and that sort of thing. If you want to get a strength plan, we've got a free strength plan that you can download. Obviously, that's going to help you stay injury-free. You can listen to our weekly podcasts. We've got Run with Coach Parry and the Ask Coach Parry podcast. And then we also put up a whole bunch of videos on YouTube. And then at the start of the webinar tonight, I started sharing Carol's story, and Carol's story is a great one with regards to getting faster and how to get faster for Comrades. So if you joined us at the beginning, you will know exactly what I told you about Carol, but she went to one of the road shows. She had a chat to Lindsay and decided she was going to start working with us over at Coach Parry. She missed qualification in 2018, just missed qualification, and then Comrades went and changed that qualifying criteria to 450, so she was even further off. So she missed it at 5. And then she decided that she was going to get faster over the shorter distances to try and qualify for Comrades. The last time, bear in mind, the last time Carol ran a 450 marathon was 14 years ago in the build-up to Comrades last year. She ran a 4:48. It was her fastest marathon time since 2006 at 58 years old. I had a chat to Carol last week. She went and ran a 4K PB last week at the age of 60 on her birthday. So it's amazing. Carol went on to run an 11:31 Comrades. It was her second fastest Comrades time ever. So there's proof in the pudding that improving your time over the shorter distances really pays off. And that was her finishing Comrades in 2019, and she's been well on track for Comrades this year, but obviously not happening, but she is running the virtual race as well. And we want to help you get faster at Coach Parry, and we've put together an unbelievable deal for you, okay? So you've listened to the webinar, you're sitting in front of your computer screen, and you're going, you know what? I know that running fast over shorter distance is going to help me get faster for Comrades 2021. And that's why we've put this deal together for you, okay? We've got a whole bunch of different training programs, but we want to get you on one of the shorter ones, a 5K or a 21. You can get access to any one of our 12K training, our 12-week training programs. You get access to Lindsay and the rest of our coaches, weekly members calls, accountability and motivation. There's over 1,000 runners from around the world there, and we've put this deal together for you to take advantage of it right now. We'll give you 50% discount on any one of those training programs. In South African terms, we normally sell them for $697. You can get that for half price All you need to use is the coupon code Comrades. If you head over to the URL, I'll give it to you in a second, but it's only valid for this week. Until Friday, the 5th of June, you can grab that. We want to help you get faster, which will in turn improve your Comrades time in 2021. This is what you need to do next, okay? Go to coachparry.com/train, select the 12-week program you want, and then let's help you get faster. Use that coupon code Comrades, and we'll get you onto that training platform and give you all the help and assistance you need over the next 12 weeks to run that 5K or 10K PB, so that we can set you up for success, Comrades 2021. Lindsay, 9 o'clock, that was time's flown, man. As they say, time flies when you're having fun, but it has been amazing, and it's been a great ride. It's probably been one of the most tumultuous series of Comrades webinars with everything that's been going on, but I've had a ton of fun as always.
Yeah, look, and today's was fantastic. Like you said, there were just so many questions, so we actually almost struggled to get our presentation in on time, and that always makes these engagements pretty amazing. So yeah, look, I had fun in difficult times. It was stressful at times. There have been one or two moments where I've gotten a bit fed up and a little bit down, but at every turn there has been running. There's been our community that we get to engage with every single day, and there have been Comrades runners. You know, sometimes there's been a few occasions where they've been a little bit negative, but fortunately, for the most part, the ones that we have interacted with have been extremely positive, and that also keeps us going. So I hope we've managed to keep you guys going, and we will continue to strive to keep you going until 2021, where we can all meet in Durban at the expo and celebrate 100 years of Comrades marathoning.
Yeah, it's going to make it so much sweeter when it does go back. And Lindsay, you running the 10 on the 14th. I'm running the 10 as well. I've been pretty quiet about it. I was training for Comrades 2014 too, and picked up a stress fracture literally just before the first lockdown started. So I was forced into some rest, but I'm 4 weeks back training. It's all green blocks, focusing on consistency, and I'm going to be doing the 10K, not for time, but just to be out there because I want to be part of it, and then definitely on the cards for 2021. Let us know in the comments, what did you get out of this webinar? Like, what are you taking out of this going forward? And yeah, please do stay in touch. We will hopefully be doing these series of webinars again for 2021, but this is the last one that we're doing for this year, and we'll see you out on the road for the virtual run. And yeah, everyone's saying thanks. Thank you guys for being part of this, and thank you to Bonitas as well. A massive thank you to Bonitas for making these webinars possible and allowing us to come into your lives and your living rooms and wherever you are around the world. We really do appreciate your time and you spending time with us. And yeah, we hope you got tons out of it, and we look forward to catching up again soon. Stay safe wherever you are in the world in these crazy times. And yeah, enjoy your running. I think that's probably the message we want everyone to take out of tonight is just run because we can. Be grateful and go out and have fun. Lindsay, final words from you, Coach?
Yeah, looking forward to all the interactions on the 14th of June. Let's make it a real celebration of running, as Brad said. Loads of excitement. Tag your friends, and let's really put running and Comrades in particular onto the top of all the Facebook feeds and all the Twitter feeds and all the Instagram feeds.
Awesome. Everyone take care. We'll chat soon.